Episode 172. Um, I'm going shirtless because it was 112 today in where I am, and 121 further west in the valley. According to Twitter, it was the hottest day in LA in 125,000 years. But before we talk about that, well, related to that, Lance said that you had to cancel a couple classes because it was too hot for students to come.
Yeah, I did.
And then I said it was too hot for me to come. I was too hot to even beat off. And
first-rate humor in this film, this show.
Not first-rate, but it demonstrates a principle that I was surprised to find out that you aren't aware of, except maybe intuitively, which is it's easier to be dirty and funny than clean and funny. Which you should know because your dad was the greatest comedy writer of the 1950s. And he was not a filthy. I mean, I'm sure there were some risque jokes, but he was mostly a clean writer.
I thought his greatest joke was when Inspector Clouseau. My father invented Inspector Clouseau, and in order to catch the jewel thief, he has to show up at a fancy dress ball. I used to have a lot of those, and so there was a lady dressed as Cleopatra, and I don't know how knowledgeable our viewers are, so I will tell you that she killed herself by letting a snake bite her. And so Inspector Clouseau trips and he falls and he goes down with in a heap with Cleopatra. And then as they're standing up, she says, "Get your hands off my asp." So that's the level of dirty jokes that you could tell back when my father was writing.
1962, maybe?
Yeah. There's another one from the same party. I just love these jokes. Inspector Clouseau has to infiltrate the masquerade party with his own police. So he has two of them show up as a zebra. And so he says, "Listen, you got to get on this. You got to work fast, and you got to get this right, or I'll have your stripes." See, that's a joke about how you could demote a soldier by taking their stripes away, or a policeman. Yeah.
But
I love those jokes.
Yeah. We're in a tougher time for jokes because we've all seen so much more stuff.
Yeah. I heard jokes that were. I was watching Family Guy the other day, and there were jokes that, honestly, I mean, I love Family Guy. I think it's funny, but the jokes were things that you couldn't imagine. I mean, there's no boundaries at all. Anything, babies having sex. I mean, people tearing their heads off. It's out of control.
Yeah, I mean, there's no limit in that. Most entertainment sources are not subject to mandatory censorship. The broadcast networks are subject to some rules, or at least I worked for Kimmel, which is on ABC, and there are rules for certain times of the day, what you can and can't say. But apparently, After midnight, you can say fuck, and you don't get fined by the FCC. But ABC's local affiliates are a bunch of God-fearing folk, and you hear from them, so they will still, get pit. Kimmel went from live, with a 5-second delay or a 7-second delay every night to being taped after Thomas Jane said fuck during an interview, and the people there were two people running the beep buttons, and they each missed it. One went in early and the other came in late, and it went beep fuck beep.
Oh
And
wow.
and so we actually did it so he got us home earlier, because instead of taping at 6 to go out to the East Coast no, I'm sorry, instead of taping at 9 p.m. to go out to the East Coast at midnight, we started taping it at a more reasonable hour.
I remember that. You used to be a night person.
Well, I still am. Under COVID, I've got no discipline, and I stay up till 3:30 in the morning just binge watching shit and doing sit-ups.
Sounds good. COVID works for you.
It's terrible because, I get nothing done.
Well, do you?
Well, you can see I'm a shadow of my former self. It's like,
Yeah, but you got to shine a light from above, or we won't see your ab develop.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, all right. Well,
All right.
you're definitely very thin, which is excellent. So, do we have any topics, Rick, or should I
We
start?
have so many. Do you want to start with like Twitter says, hottest day in LA in 1,250 centuries, 1/8 of a million years. Now, I tried to come up with a source for that, and I couldn't find it. But measuring temperature is like measuring the diameter of the universe. You have to use different methods the further back you go. There are daily weather records for LA going back to about 1895, and then you have to go to tree rings and soil cores, and then I don't know, a whole bunch of other stuff. So somebody has anyway. It's certainly the hottest. 121 in Woodland Hills is certainly the hottest since they began keeping daily weather records.
I don't think people watch this show to hear about the weather.
No, but they do want to hear us argue about climate change.
Oh.
This is a climate change argument. On August 17th, Death Valley broke the all-time hottest temperature record with 130, and 19 of the past 20 years have been the hottest years ever. There are fires raging across California and Colorado, and I assume the states in between. You've got hurricanes that are more brutal because they have more heat energy that needs to be dissipated. The hotter shit is, the more furious the hurricanes spin, the more moisture they're able to hold, so you get more flooding. So, people who believe in climate change, which is probably, I would say, a substantial majority, believe that some of this stuff is reflective of climate change. And then you can argue that there are always fluctuations, but when the fluctuations start stacking up, it becomes harder and harder to argue that this is fluky shit.
Okay. Is that all you had to say?
Well, you'll say stuff and then I'll say stuff.
I think we have more pressing concerns. I'm
Okay, if you
not
want
going
to
to
move
vote
on.
for, I'm, I'm not going to vote for a lying, corrupt communist in Joe Biden, who will destroy my country uh, because of the change in the weather. I think there are way more important things. There's the education of the kids into not being little communists that will burn the city down. There is the economy, which was the best in history before the virus attacked us. There is the incredible achievements that Trump has in foreign policy.
Well, if you want to move,
So
let's.
in short, I'm not going to vote for Biden because he's going to save the world from climate change. And I don't even believe he can, even
Well,
if he wanted to.
well, what's going to save Biden won't save the world from climate change. What's going to save the world from climate change is capitalism.
Oh, good.
There's a bunch of money. The two biggest industries of the coming century are going to be uh, extending life, making people live longer, and fighting climate change. Um, so capitalism is going to get weird because it'll just keep getting faster and faster, and there are going to be automation and AI are going to wreak havoc with the world of employment, but it's still going to be money that's going to propel these major technological changes. I mean,
All right, fair enough.
the trouble with science fiction of the 50s, one big problem is, the pointy rocket sets down on the alien planet, and there's never any talk about, at least that I remember, there's very little talk about who's paying for the fucking mission. I think everybody assumed the government was paying for it. There weren't any stickers on the rocket saying this is sponsored by Ovaltine or anything like that. And then a major change in science fiction over the past 20, 30 years or more is that they talk about market forces, that economics are a big part of science fiction. And we've seen, when we were growing up, nerds were fucked because there weren't computer billionaires. There was no reason to like nerds until there were computer billionaires. But since then, you fucking gotten, the technology that we have is propelled by the shitloads of money that go along with it. So anyway, you talked about Biden and communism and he's been in government for 47 years and all anyway. I mean, but the one area that impinges on capital, on economics and climate change is one of the areas. Well, the areas is the type of energy you're going to use, and there are only 50,000 coal miners left in America, and the number of coal-fired plants is going down, and the cost of wind energy and solar are going down, and fracking has driven, and natural gas, and all that have made the U.S. energy self-sufficient and driven down prices relative to coal. So, and you like to say that Kamala Harris is going to get rid of fracking, but nah, it's just like fracking might have some more regulations hung on it. solar and wind will keep getting cheaper. We'll keep using them, and the the percentage of energy that we get from non-renewables will keep dropping. And not because of communism, and largely not because of regulations, but because there's money in this shit.
Well, the reason that we keep having rolling blackouts around the state is because we're not getting enough energy from solar and wind. And the experts are saying that because what's happening is this: people are in California every summer when we use our air conditioners, we get blackouts around the state, and there are apparently government mandates to try to use more solar and wind, and they just don't produce enough energy. So there are experts saying that we need to use more oil or nuclear if we don't want to get these blackouts. The problem, Rick, with wind power is it just doesn't work very well. I mean, it works enough to light a light bulb, but so yeah, in theory it does create electricity, but it can't generate the sort of energy we need in a state with 40 million people. So I don't think anything is ever going to happen with wind power except that we're going to stop using it.
Well,
as far as what? Not finished.
Okay.
As far as Kamala Harris saying that you're saying that she's lying when she says that she's going to stop fracking. Well, unfortunately, I have to take the Democrat Party at their word. Now, in their platform, they have committed to abandoning fossil fuels in the next decade or two. That is their commitment. So I'm sorry, but the thing that is the best thing that's happened for the U.S. in energy in 70 years, the fact that we became independent of the countries that hate us, like Russia and Saudi Arabia and Iran, was made possible by fracking. And the Democrats are so feckless and really nuts. I don't have any other explanation for it, but they are committed to getting rid of fracking. Now, this week, an interesting thing happened. They asked Joe Biden directly, "Are you planning on getting rid of fracking?" And he said, "No, I'm not getting rid of fracking." But then there are 3 tapes that I saw of him speaking this year in the debates and in speeches saying he would get rid of fracking. So the Democrats have to, it's like I've been saying all along, the Democrats have to win by lying. They can't just tell you what they really want to do. If they tell you what they really want to do, you won't vote for them. So Democrats will lie. Okay, that's all I have to say about climate change. I have other subjects.
All right, well, hold on. Let me say stuff.
All right.
So America became energy independent in 2014, which was under Obama, and at least partly due to fracking. And I don't want to get rid of fracking until we can get rid of fracking. And I think market forces do a lot. I don't know if they do enough, but there was fracking, a lot of fracking under Obama. There were also regulations that tried to limit where you could frack, not to just a few places, but don't be assholes about fracking. Like don't do your shit in such a way that you cause earthquakes. Don't do your shit in such a way that you contaminate a town's water supply. Maybe don't fuck up national parks, but that still leaves most places to frack. And also don't be super sloppy with the shit. A lot of stuff that sounds reasonable to me. You might be right about wind. I mean, wind requires big-ass windmills. A thing came out today that, like, one argument against wind is it slaughters birds. They just fly into the rotors. Turns out you can, according to one new study, you can drop bird fatalities by 70% if you paint one of the vanes, one of the propellers, black. I guess that's like gives them enough of a heads up. I don't know, but anyway, wind may not be the, the overall solution, but solar, we've got a shitload of surface area. The U.S., just not including Alaska, is 3,000 miles wide by 1,500 miles north to south. So you're looking at 4 million square miles. And, we should be able to cover enough of that with solar panels to make a big dent. And yeah, unlike a lot of liberals, I like nuclear if it's not done stupidly. And, you can do it not stupidly. I was excited when GE came out with a nuclear reactor that eats the spent fuel of older nuclear reactors. And then GE turned out to be a piece of shit company that just mismanaged like crazy. So I don't even know what's happened. Nobody wants to buy reactors now because people are too scared of them. But you can certainly make reactors that are safe. But that discussion is for probably a different decade because enough bad shit has happened with reactors that people are nervous. All right, you want to move on to other stuff?
No, I want to retort, rebut.
Okay.
Discussion, you've pointed out to me that fracking made progress under Obama. Mm-hmm. It was in spite of Obama, not because of Obama. The oil industry is very, very pleased with the way Trump has helped them. It was under the reserves they were trying to get into the most were in a place called Anwar, and there was, I believe, a pipeline that was coming down through Canada. And in both cases... That's
for oil shale. That's for oil sands. Yeah, that's not for fracking.
I understand, but it was still allowed through under Trump, and the lands that they wanted to... there were national government-owned lands that they wanted to frack on, and Trump allowed it. So it's true, Rick, that fracking was developed in spite of Obama's attempts to limit it under his presidency, but fracking has thrived under Trump.
Yeah, but it also thrived under Obama.
No, it thrived under Obama in spite of him. Trump has aided it. Trump has allowed it onto the federal lands that they wanted to go into, and he allowed that pipeline down from Canada to help the oil industry in a different way.
Yeah, I bought stock in that fucking pipeline, Lance.
Well, good. Now let me say something else. Again, here's
I got rid of out of the market when COVID happened. But
here's another issue. I keep trying to explain to you that because you're not crazy, you are actually a Republican. You're somebody that should vote for Trump. And the fact that you believe in nuclear power means that you're actually, that's one more reason you should vote for Trump and against the environmental kooks in the Democrat Party. You've never been able to convince me or show me any subject in 4 years that would tempt me to voting Democrat. But unfortunately, your party is no longer as conservative as you are. You believe in nuclear power. One reason for you to vote for Trump. I'm done.
Well, you don't have to be conservative to think that you could operate nuclear plants safely. That's more
right.
Being...
But you should vote for Trump.
No, because, well, look, I mean, doing this and also being on Twitter, political Twitter all day, every day, has made me, I mean, both of us, the same thing happened to both of us. You became politically woke on 9/11 when you saw that you thought that America's unpreparedness for 9/11 was not good, right?
I didn't I thought that the Democrats wanted to surrender and the Republicans wanted to fight back.
But you
So
got
I
woke
became a
then.
Republican.
All right. So, and I got
Okay.
woke when I was, hired to write jokes for TV, and then when just things got crazy. Um, so, what am I trying to? Fuck. What was my stupid point? What were we
You're
just
trying to
talking?
explain to me why, even
Oh,
though
so anyway,
you have Republican ideas,
we each of us over the past 15, 20 years have learned a lot. You already knew a lot of history, but you've learned more and I've learned more. And so like you look back and I look back and I mean, and there are Republican presidents that, like Eisenhower seems fine. I don't know that much about Eisenhower, but he presided over, not an entirely peaceful era. I mean, the Cold War was raging and the nuclear arms race was going, but still, he was a reasonable guy. Even though he was a military guy, in his farewell address, he cautioned against the military-industrial complex, which is, big industries palling up to the military to sell the U.S. a bunch of war-making. What's going on? We got a telephone going off or something. Okay. No. JD. Oops, sorry. Our director, who shall remain nameless. Okay. All right. So
I
anyway,
can hear it.
I like Eisenhower. I've always liked Nixon because he reminds me of me, that Nixon had this big complex. Nixon always wanted to be more popular than he was, but he was shifty. And, he went up against Kennedy, our most handsome president, except for maybe a young Rutherford B. Hayes, who was super hunky. And Nixon just always had a lot of social resentment. And I could relate to that. And even Nixon grudgingly did a lot of shit because people wanted it. He started the war on cancer. He started the Environmental Protection Agency. Teddy Roosevelt, to the extent that I know him, was a great Republican president. Wrote 50 books, fucking a rugged outdoorsman who created the national park system, who gets shot in the chest by an assassin at the beginning of a speech and fucking finishes the speech. Just great Republicans throughout history. But then you look at what the Republican Party has become, and you guys started pandering to dumb people, because in the 70s, conservative think tanks figured out that dumb people are more mobilizable. You can get them out there, you can get them angry and active, and then 30 years ago, Fox News started broadcasting, targeting, angry, gullible people, and now, after decades of this, your party is a shell of what it was, and it's this crazy joke, horrible, fucking corrupt party that is unpalatable. I mean, I love my parents had a party, and had parties in 1968 and 1972, each time Nixon got elected. And I grew up, I didn't have more than the usual amount of contempt for my parents. They were fine, upstanding people who were politically conservative. Now my mom, who's always voted Republican until 2016, says, my 86-and-a-half-year-old mom says that Trump makes her want to vomit. Your party is bad right now. I've been a registered Republican. I had a girlfriend whose Party when I was in college, and her mom was a powerful Republican lobbyist. And I'm like, okay, I'll be Republican. It's not really my party, but I don't see anything loathsome about saying I'm a Republican, for a girlfriend. Just I thought it was a nice thing to do that didn't cost anything because I'm a cheap fucker. Anyway, that's me. All right.
Well, let's begin with things that the Republicans may have done this very week. That would be. So let me ask you a question, Rick. Did your media tell you anything that Trump did that was of any significance this week?
In the previous week, oh yeah, wait, he did a thing. He did want the Stars and Stripes newspaper for the U.S. military to be shut down, but then he got caught saying all this bad shit about the military, and he turned around and said that the Stars and Stripes should be saved. That's one thing. The previous week, he and Jared Kushner worked out this kind of non-belligerence agreement between the UAE and Israel. I think the UAE agreed to not to cease saying that Israel shouldn't exist or some shit like that. I don't know. Are either of those things what you're talking about?
No. First of all, he didn't say anything bad about the military. That's a Democrat lie. But
no, it's been verified by even Fox News. It's been verified.
No, it hasn't. No, it hasn't.
Of sources.
It hasn't. Nope. The person. There are 11 people that have come forward and said they were there the whole time and never heard a word of
Except
that.
for what about all the bad shit that about John McCain? He said on video.
John McCain's a piece of shit. I would say those things too. Anyway, let me get back to. So I asked you if Trump had done anything notable, and you said that yeah, he had negotiated a peace between two Arab countries and Israel. And I appreciate that your media couldn't keep that from you, Rick. Very good. But I wanted to know if Trump had done anything notable this week besides the slander. Was there anything else that you can think of that the media didn't lie to you about?
I don't know. I mean, there was the prescription stuff, but that was a few weeks ago.
No.
I don't know. Go ahead. Tell me.
All right, time's up, Rick. So here's what happened. Part of the reason that Rick is a Democrat.
Oh wait, there's another thing. That I remember. He's getting rid of racial awareness training requirements for companies, I believe. Is that
good? If he is, that's great. But that's not what I'm talking about. Things that are very, very important that your media kept from you.
Well, let's see. Just give me a hint here.
No, I'm not going to give you a hint. Can I just tell you now? Because we got people listening. All right, so here's the situation. I'm going to preface it by saying this. For the past few weeks, I've been proving that Rick is brainwashed because his media, the reason Rick hates Trump so much is that his media lies by omission. They're not telling him whenever Trump does something good or great. And so Rick is very confident. He feels very well informed, and he comes here and he argues with me.
That's not why I'm confident. Go ahead.
And he argues with me about how bad Trump is, and then he doesn't know anything that Trump has done because his media has lied to him. So it's really sad. But this week, Trump did two amazing things. The first is he negotiated a peace treaty between Serbia and Kosovo. Now, these are two countries that have been at war for 21 years. And you may remember, some of you, that we actually entered that war. Bill Clinton bombed Serbia 21 years ago. And so since then, anyway, it was Serbia. Bill Clinton was trying to protect Kosovo from Serbia, and you can argue that he did the right thing. That's not my issue. My issue is that Trump managed to do something that was considered impossible because the Kosovoans and the Serbians were bitter, bitter enemies. And this week, Trump brought peace to that region between those two enemies. That's the first thing. The second thing is Rick was completely lied to about that. They didn't say a word about it, and it was the most important thing that's happened in foreign policy, and I mean, tremendously important. But his media kept him from knowing about that. Instead, they told him the sort of petty, little shitty, stupid little things that he mentioned. So that's how they're keeping him badly informed. But there was something also equally important, and this one is equally a miracle, and that is that to set this up, the unemployment rate is now, last month, the unemployment rate was over 10%, which is bad, but it's not depression level, but it's bad. And the people were predicting, because we lost millions of jobs, that the country would go into a depression. At least the Democrats thought that. But no, the unemployment rate went down to 10%, which is bad, but it's not depression. And everyone said, well, so what? So he's got a bad unemployment rate. That's still not good enough. And 30 days passed, and the unemployment rate went down to 8.4%. Now, let me explain. First of all, it's a miracle. Nobody, not even the Republicans, not even people in the Republican government, thought that it would go down to 8.4%. So to give you some idea of how good that is, when Obama beat Romney to be reelected, the unemployment rate was around 8%. Okay? So in other words, you can get elected president with an 8.4 unemployment rate. So what happened is this. Trump had the best economy in history, COVID came up, he lost millions of jobs, we almost went into a depression, and now we're back to where a typical Democrat president has the unemployment rate. I'm not done.
Hold on, because the thing that dropped, 1/4 of the jobs that dropped the unemployment rate from 10 to 8.4 or so are temporary census jobs that are going away if Trump has his way at the end of September, though a judge ruled against that.
Okay, well, it really doesn't matter, Rick. There are census jobs in every presidential administration, so you have to factor that in.
There's a census every 10 years. These are jobs associated with the every 10-year census.
Okay, but the point is that either way, people didn't think it would even drop below 10, and now it's at 8.4. At this rate, if it was to continue, because it's going down 1 or 2 points every month, we might actually have, by the election, a rate lower than Obama had, like much lower, when he won re-election. So I would just like to say that you should be ashamed of yourself for not being happy about the unemployment going down.
I'm not unhappy about it, but I did read
and
today.
You should have, and instead of telling me this shitty, petty, nasty little criticism about some of them being temporary jobs.
If they're jobs that only exist for the next month or 2 months.
But they're not. But we're talking about, you're talking about a small percentage of those jobs.
We're talking about fully 1/4 of those jobs that made the
okay, all right. So the unemployment rate, even if you get rid of those, the unemployment rate went down into
8.75 if you want.
That's still great. And you should be very happy about that, and you should have mentioned that when I asked you, but your dirty, filthy media made you think, oh, but some of those jobs are temporary. You see how they lie to you, Rick?
They didn't lie about that shit. They didn't lie.
No, no,
And
what they should have said was we had a staggering improvement in the unemployment figures, and then if you wanted to read further about it, you could have found out that some of them are temporary, but they didn't. They said that first so that you would be negative and petty and critical.
no, because I looked at this in not because I wanted to know what depression levels of unemployment were, because to see how Trump's levels actually compared to the depression, and as late as FDR's policies kept the country going throughout the 1930s, but we didn't really recover from the depression until World War II put everybody to work, and as late as 1940 there was 14% unemployment, which I thought was interesting. Um, and so, under Trump, there's been this V-shaped recovery, at least of the stock market. The stock market dropped like crazy, and then it shot right back up. It turns out because the Fed has bought $1.25 trillion worth of corporate bonds, keeping corporations going. So the stock market, at least, looks good, though it's artificially propped up. I think Trump has added about $4 trillion to the national deficit, which, if it were a Democrat doing that, you guys would be pissed. But
No, because I understand that the Democrats have locked down the country, and so they've caused a depression. They've caused all the financial ruin that we're going through. So I do understand, but in spite of the efforts of the Democrats to lock down the economy, Trump and the American people are bouncing back. So I just think it's marvelous. And by the way, Roosevelt's policies probably extended the Depression, and the only thing that helped him was World War II. Nothing that Roosevelt did got us out of the Depression. There were no policies that Roosevelt came up with that got us out of the Depression.
But
what got us out of the Depression was World War II.
I agree with you in the broad strokes, but he did a lot of shit that kept people surviving through those terrible years. You can't tell me that Hoover, the guy the Depression happened under and who wanted us to fight it via austerity, you can't tell me that those policies would have saved the tens of millions of suffering Americans. Well, I guess you could, but I wouldn't believe you.
I don't know enough about the economics of that period, except that to know which policies would have helped and wouldn't have helped, except that I know that nothing Roosevelt did worked because the Depression continued throughout the 30s. It started in 32 and it continued until the war. So, 1929, and it continued until the 40s. And so I'm not impressed by Roosevelt's handling of the Depression.
Okay, but I think we do agree that you don't get out of a financial crisis via austerity. You throw money at it.
Well, one of the things that Roosevelt did was start a lot of programs that made people think that the government was helping them. It may have given people relief of some kind. But anyway, I don't know much more about it than that. So let's get.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about the lockdown, because I think we can find common ground in that. You're not going to agree with me about masks and social distancing, I don't think, but I think we can agree that there's a lot of shit you can do. in terms of getting businesses back up and going, um, while wearing masks and practicing social distancing. I'll go. I don't have to, but I will go. I wanted fucking Popeye's chicken. I bought 11 pieces of I bought 11 Popeye's chicken tenders or boneless, whatever the fuck they were, for $17, and they gave me like 16. They just filled the box. I was so delighted. It was so worth the risk of going out, even though I didn't have to go out. I also went to Gelson's and got overpriced gazpacho because it was on the way, and fucking and I got blood pressure pills. So anyway, I ran errands and I did it all. I went to these places where people are, and I gave a dirty look to the asshole guy who was doing the nose mask, where the mask is across his face but his nose is out there. Just But I didn't. People can do stuff. If I think we should change the emphasis to fucking just do your shit while wearing masks. In when reasonable, and in some instances where it's a little beyond reasonable. Schools are. Don't just throw open schools willy-nilly, but you do distance learning, do tele-learning when you can, and based on good numbers, where you're seeing community where people are willing to mask up and not have fraternity pool parties, and there are ways for people to go to school safely, though not generally the way people are going back to college right now. But we can do stuff, and the country doesn't need to be. We've been sputtering along in this weird half lockdown way for 6 months now, and we've learned a bunch of shit, and there's some stuff we haven't learned, but it's obvious from what's happened in the U.S. and from what's happened in other countries that you don't have to be locked down. You do have to practice, and people can lead reasonable lives if they're willing to behave reasonably.
All right. We go over this every week, so I don't know how much more our audience can hear us restate our positions. I'll keep it as brief as possible. Actually, one of our viewers had a comment and asked, why aren't we filming in person? And I was going to offer to you, I'm getting a set of goggles. They actually look good. They're a clear pair of glasses, and they have a face mask. You wear them on your ears like normal glasses, but they have a face mask that comes down over your nose and mouth. They look comfortable, and because I hate wearing a mask, and I was wondering if you would come here and we could record in person if we both wore things like that.
I got to say, maybe. I'll tell you, it's not just the COVID. It's for 3 years, I drove 35 miles to you and then 35 miles back. And now we've been forced to do it like this for a while. And it's nice not to have to do all the driving. And the COVID numbers in California are still, they're no better than they have been. So I still want to wait till the number. Now, well, let me say the numbers, the cases that are found per day, per week are still, there's still a lot of them. The mortality has gone down considerably because they've learned about a whole bunch of drugs, and they've learned about who is most at risk, and they've learned some strategic things like putting people on their stomachs rather than putting them on their backs. So the mortality has gone from 8% in the first month of large numbers of COVID cases to 2% or less right now. But still, you don't want to get the shit because a huge percentage of people who recover don't recover entirely, at least as far as we know, given that people have only been getting this shit for 6-7 months at the longest. So I'm still happy doing it from here for now, but I'm willing to entertain it, depending on how shit changes. I mean,
Well,
Trump
I'd be
is,
willing to trade. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
well, I know, you know, Carol's a little less cautious than I am, but I know that she still doesn't want to let you in our house because you're a lot less cautious than we are at this
I'm
point.
not
But we'll
taking
see.
any precautions I can get away. If I can get away with it, I am just hanging out with people as much as possible.
Yeah.
I don't believe in the lockdown, but I agree with you with one thing, and that is I do live in a society where at least half of the people are afraid of the virus, and so for their sake, so I can conduct business, I am wearing a mask. Just because I can't do everything I want to do, even though I think it's sort of like when you get to be an adult, you realize you can't walk around with your penis hanging out even though you want to.
Well, I
So
can
if
because I get
people,
paid for that. It's lovely.
yeah, if if people want me to wear a mask under certain circumstances, I'll do it. Just to be, just because I have friends who otherwise I like them and I'm willing to hang out with them. If it makes them feel any better, I'll wear a mask, even though I think it's a silly
Well,
idea.
masks aren't going
Um,
away for a long time. Before
well,
COVID, there was, I don't know, maybe 1% of the U.S. population. You'd see people out, especially, I mean, you'd see, not to stereotype, but it's true, like you'd see,
Asian people,
probably
yeah,
what? More
Asian
Asians
people, yeah, instead of just
wearing masks, and the occasional, like, crazy white lady. Um, and in the future, for the rest of the decade, you might see between, even 3 years from now, 5 years from now, you might see, 5% of the population just like, like in an Asian city will be wearing a mask. Some people
yeah,
won't get over the fear. Some people will, just be being courteous because they think they might have they might have some flu and they're like, well, fucking, I'll just put on a mask.
yeah.
Masks are,
Are you
they're
done?
just going to be, you're going to see masks, you know, commonly from now on.
Yeah,
And it's, it's frustrating. I don't know exactly who I'm frustrated for, but it would have been such a cheap way to show that you're in the future. If you were making like a shitty science fiction movie in 2002, just put a bunch of people in masks. They're going about their business, but everybody's masked up. When I ran errands, getting Popeyes, and um, I looked at the world. I pretended that I was Adam Carolla from the year 2000, suddenly finding himself in some, future. He didn't know what year it was, but he's out here, and the cars look different. They look more like hard candies that people have sucked on. They're slightly more aerodynamic, and everybody's wearing masks. And Corolla was like, "Whoa, this is, this is the future." And he didn't, it's a fun game to play to pretend you're somebody who's new to the shit and just walk around and see what you can figure out.
Yeah, those of us that have been walking around for outside for about 5 months used to think it seemed very dystopian and post-apocalyptic, and so that's new to you, Rick. But
Well, I'm just saying that, like, for
I'm
$100 worth of masks, you could have made a science fiction movie in 2002 that would have looked like the fucking future. Would have looked weird. In the movie, is it Her,
yeah.
where Joaquin Phoenix falls in love with his phone? Um, the way they made it look like the future is they shot it in Singapore because they have lots of crazy futuristic buildings, and they made everybody wear pants with a super high waistline. Cheap, and relatively cheap, and it made it look weird and futuristic.
Huh. Well, actually, when you say this, to me, it's not amusing at all. To me, it's terrifying that the Democrats have enjoyed this usurpation of our freedoms so much that they don't really want to let go. It's like any vestige of how the Democrats managed to control everybody. They don't want to let that go. They want to keep that going. So I don't want people to wear masks 1 minute longer than mandated. I mean, yeah, obviously, if you have the flu, you should stay home. But no, that is what I'm afraid of, is that the Democrats have made this the new normal, and I think it's sick. But there's
Oh,
something I
there's a
wanted to go
sexy new
on.
there's a sexy new thing. Nose cleavage.
All right, I don't get it, but it's kind of funny. But I want to tell you something. Last week we had a very dull debate. Um, I think it's what our director said was dull because we kept arguing about Sweden. And in the end, you were able to say that Sweden actually had uh, 5,000 deaths for 10 million people,
Five thousand
which
eight
is
hundred and eleven.
right, which is roughly the same amount of deaths that America has had
Almost
for the amount of
exactly the
people we
same
have.
per
Yeah,
capita rate. They were 576 per million, and the U.S. was 565.
yeah, and we were arguing so much about the minutia, and I couldn't find the numbers, and I was getting distracted. And finally, I realized after we hung up, well, how do you deal with that, Rick? Because America has had a very, I think, severe lockdown for 6 months, and Sweden didn't have any lockdown at all. So don't interrupt me. So that tells me that lockdowns may have had no effect whatsoever.
No, what we
How does a
had was
lockdown fanatic believe that? And don't try to tell me we didn't have a severe lockdown. It by any standards it was infinitely more severe than Sweden had. So how do you explain that?
well, I would explain it by saying that it was more severe than Sweden, though I bet you Sweden started locking down after they realized that herd immunity was not going to work.
No, they didn't. They never locked down at all.
Really? Well, I don't.
No, and they had the same rate that we do. So
Yeah,
how do
did
you
they
explain
mask
that,
up?
Rick?
I bet you they fucking masked up.
No, no, they didn't. They didn't do that at all. They went about their business.
Yeah, they fucking get it. They get it. Yeah, but
The director's trying to ask a question.
I don't. I mean,
I I did. The director.
I'm underinformed about the disease rate in homeless people.
Wait, you're not, or you are? Because I know that the homeless people. The director's asking about,
The director's asking about the rate in homeless,
and
the
it
COVID
turns out,
rate.
director, that the homeless did get outbreaks of the Wuhan. So the director is asking whether the homeless, how it affected them, and yeah, they got bad outbreaks of the virus. So should we go on to another